Coldest winter classic ever was held this past weekend in the Twin Cities. Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild is here to talk about that and all things Minnesota Wild next on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Gil Martin here, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. The Winter Classic, always a big part of the NHL calendar, was held this past Saturday in the Twin Cities, and Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild is here to talk to us about it. Seth, welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Of course, happy to be into 2022 and for the Minnesota Wild. Not the best of showings at the Winter Classic, although the atmosphere, everything looked great. I was comfortably watching from the warmth of the living room, but still had a great time.
Well, that was the place to be, at least as far as comfort is concerned. Let's talk about that atmosphere, because I thought it was great based on what I saw. I mean, they pulled out all the stops. If they had another member of the Minnesota Twins in attendance, I think they would have had enough players to field a team. But I mean, Lou Nanne was there. So many great players of all the different sports from Minnesota's past and present. Your thoughts about how the organization and the league pulled this off?
I thought it was just visually so stunning to see everything that they had put into the presentation. I mean, obviously, Target Field is as picturesque of a ballpark in Major League Baseball as you're going to find. So that is a great start for everything that they had. They were able to get the sheets out kind of in between the infield and the outfield, and you look at all the little intricate details that they had all the way down to the lighting, the log cabin out in center field that all the players funneled out onto the ice during warmups. Honestly, it was just, as somebody from Minnesota, we've had the chance to host the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and obviously that had some great reviews. And now having a chance to do this, it's just fun to see the state kind of rally together and put on such an unbelievable showing. It's one of those things that you can't help but just be super proud to be part of the state. And it went off without really any sort of a hitch. The gameplay, maybe not what people were hoping for, but visually, performance-wise, everything went great. And, I guess the only thing that I was a little bummed about was not being able to go. But at the same time, people having beverages freeze within 5 to 10 minutes of just sitting in their seats, that's probably something I could do without. But all in all, a tremendous showing for the state of Minnesota, the state of hockey. It just looked phenomenal, and I think that's a huge part of it.
What was the highlight out of all the build-up to this game? And with these outdoor games, I think the atmosphere and the build-up are probably better than the game sometimes. What for you was the highlight?
Well, honestly, if you go to the Minnesota Wild's Twitter account and the video promo that they cut the day of the game that was narrated by Lou Nanne gave me chills. I think that just something that simple carrying so much weight for this game. Another thing that I thought was just so cool was having various Twins be part of the festivities. Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, Kent Herbeck, Tony Oliva, some heavy hitters from Minnesota Twins lore that had a chance to be part of just the atmosphere. I think those are some of the things that I pulled away from what happened. But, seeing some of the celebrities, seeing John Hamm there was just, one of those crazy things too. it was very reminiscent of when the Super Bowl was here, and just seeing all of the different celebrities that were out and about as part of the game. Um, Really, that's kind of the stuff that I pull from it.
As far as the game itself, disappointing performance for the Wild. They have been struggling lately. I believe it was Matt Zuccarello who said that the team should be embarrassed by their performance. Do you think that is a little bit much, or do you think he has a point there?
I think what he is conveying is just frustration at how they performed on the national stage. If this would have been just any normal game, you probably get a little bit of a softer tone from him and from other guys on the team. But obviously, with this being, the showcase events of the winter, you want to go out and you want to win it in front of the home fans and win it in front of the national audience. And so coming out and giving up 5 goals in the second period, really not a great way to do that. I mean, the team showed fight at the ends. They got it to within a 2 goal deficit with that final score. But ultimately, I think the big thing to pull away is the fact that you have one of the teams that was taking part in this game having played one game in the last 2 weeks. And through no fault of their own, the Wild are really the only team in the NHL that is not dealing with widespread COVID issues. Jonas Brodin, the only player that is dealing with COVID-19 at this point, and he nearly was able to test back into play on Saturday. Other than that, the Wild have not dealt with it at all. And so for them to be relatively clean of COVID-19 and yet still not play due to, issues traveling to Canada, due to the teams that they were supposed to play in between dealing with massive COVID issues. It's just there's nothing you can really do about it, but at the same time it's super frustrating because they were playing really well up until things started to kind of flare up again with the Omicron variant, and now they're just not playing at all. And they come back, and you could definitely tell it looked like a team who hadn't played since losing to the Dallas Stars. And like I said, I don't know what you do about that. The Wild are very smart about it, obviously, throughout all this time. It's just one of those things. I mean, I'm not going to overreact really any to what we saw. This is just a team that is going to need to get healthy and get back to playing on a regular basis. And then we'll be able to make some judgments as to kind of where they go the rest of the way.
Are you concerned about the goaltending that the team has been getting lately? I mean, Cam Talbot has been inconsistent.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, not having Jonas Brodin or Jared Spurgeon does not help at all. And credit to the guys that have been playing big minutes defensively. John Merrill, Dmitry Kulikov, Jordy Ben. They are simply not Brodin and Spurgeon. Those guys do so much that does not show up unless you really focus on it while you're watching the game. And so some of it, yes, is Talbot not, being on his A game, or Capo Kakinen not being on his A game. But I think a lot of the issue is just not having those two guys in front of them and putting everybody else a little out of position, which is leading to some of these fluky goals that they're giving up. So my concern level, I would say, is probably about a 4.5 at this point out of 10. Obviously, if Brodin and Spurgeon come back and things continue down this path, then it's going to be ratcheted up a little more. But I got to see those two guys get back and then kind of judge the goaltending at that point.
So you talked about, concern level of a 4.5. Obviously, in between all these breaks and shutdowns and postponements, your team's now on a bit of a losing streak. It's 5 in a row or 6 in a row right now?
5.
So, I mean, where is your level of concern about that? I mean, they've been playing good hockey up until this recent streak. So where do you stand?
I still am at a low level. I would probably be at a 3 or a 4 in terms of a panic level. It's frustrating, the stretch that they're on right now. But again, there's really nothing you can do about other teams having to postpone games that you play against them. And now the Wild won't play again until the 6th against the Boston Bruins because their game on Tuesday was postponed already. So this is just something that the Wild are going to have to weather. The good news is that every game that does get postponed means that they're probably that much closer to getting Joel Eriksson and Jared Spurgeon back, who the latest update from Dean Evison and Bill Guerin is that those guys are probably going to miss a couple of weeks and should be able to come back after that. So silver lining is that all these games that do get pushed back to the end of the year or to February, the Wild are probably going to be at full strength for those games, which would be great. And so at this point, we just play the waiting game and hope that things don't get too far out of hand. And yeah, that's about all we can do.
Yeah, unfortunately, the whole league is playing that waiting game right now in different times at different places. But hopefully we will be able to complete an 82-game schedule roughly on time. Fingers crossed on that, and safely.
Yeah, it's going to take some figuring to get everything in. It may be that the season goes a little longer than it normally would, but we'll take that. If that's what it takes to get all the games in, so be it.
Seth, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where they could find you on social media and where they could find the podcast?
Of course, you can follow us at Locked On Wild for the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and anytime you are listening to your podcasts. Also, social media at Locked On Wild for all Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel as well. Very active here in 2022 on all of those fronts. So make sure to follow us so you stay up to date on everything going on in the state of hockey.
All right, Seth Toupal, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course.